Patagonia does four things that should make a company weaker. It tells customers to buy less. It spends money repairing old products instead of pushing new ones. It takes public positions most brands carefully avoid. And in 2022, it changed its ownership structure to protect the mission instead of optimizing for a future sale or IPO. On paper, this looks irrational. In reality, it's extremely deliberate. I'm an engineer based in Tokyo. I study systems, training, productivity, how things actually work. And Patagonia is interesting because it survives by refusing the usual definition of winning. This company didn't begin with a market opportunity. It began with a physical object. Before Yvon Chouinard was a CEO, he was a climber. And before Patagonia was a brand, he was forging steel pitons. Pitons are metal spikes you hammer into cracks in the rock so you can climb higher. They were strong, they were reliable, and they left scars. Every time a steel piton was driven in and ripped out, the crack widened. Routes changed permanently. The mountain remembered. The tool that made progress possible was also damaging the thing that made the experience meaningful. That moment matters because it set a pattern. Patagonia was born with a conflict baked in. How do you make a living from nature without destroying the thing you rely on? Most companies encounter this kind of conflict later when they're already big. Patagonia encountered it at the beginning when walking away was still possible. Instead of hiding the problem, they named it. Instead of quietly adjusting products, they explained the damage. They didn't just sell alternatives, they taught people how to behave differently. That instinct never left the system. Decades later, it shows up again, in a very different context. Patagonia openly admits that making any product, even a responsible one, still costs the planet something. No offsets, no green fantasy. So instead of celebrating consumption, they ask you to pause. That "don't buy this jacket" message wasn't a joke, it was a confession. And confessions do something strange inside trust-based systems. Most brands say, "Trust us," while hiding trade-offs. Patagonia shows you the trade-off and lets the discomfort sit there. It doesn't remove guilt, it redirects it. If you've ever felt uneasy about buying things you don't really need, Patagonia offers a shortcut. If you're going to buy anyway, at least buy from the company that admits the cost. That's when buying stops feeling like consumption and starts feeling like alignment. Buying Patagonia doesn't just feel like getting a jacket. It can feel like choosing a side. And this alignment isn't cheap. The price tag matters. It acts like a filter. It screens for people who are deeply committed to the story, or at least wealthy enough to wear that commitment convincingly. Price here isn't just revenue. It's a gate, a way of making sure the people inside the system are aligned enough to sustain it. Now watch what happens next. Criticize consumption, stand apart from normal brands, attract people who dislike consumer culture. Buying becomes a moral signal. Loyalty gets stronger. This isn't branding luck, it's structural feedback. Then there's repair. Most apparel companies quietly depend on replacement cycles. Things wear out, trends change, you buy again. Patagonia interferes with that loop. They repair, they resell, they encourage people to keep things longer. On the surface, this looks like self-sabotage. Why spend resources helping customers delay the next purchase? Because repair does something more important than preserving fabric. There's probably one piece of clothing you refuse to throw away. Not because it's expensive, because it holds a memory, a trip, a former version of yourself, a time when your body could do something it can't anymore. Repair keeps objects alive long enough for meaning to attach. And once meaning attaches, people don't behave like shoppers. They behave like members. But membership has a cost. It requires boundaries. Patagonia draws those boundaries publicly, through lawsuits, through activism, through language that makes some people uncomfortable. Most companies avoid this because it splits the audience. Patagonia seems willing to trade reach for alignment. It doesn't need everyone. It needs the right people to care deeply enough to stay. The most extreme expression of that logic came in 2022. The ownership structure was changed so that control is tied to mission, not exit. The goal wasn't to look good today. It was to make future compromise harder. Most mission-driven companies fail here. The founder leaves, the values stay on the wall, and the spreadsheet takes over. Patagonia tried to design against that failure mode. So what could break this system? Not competition, not trends. The real risk is credibility. If your system runs on moral authority, you don't get to be selectively honest. And there's one contradiction you can't delete. Patagonia argues against overconsumption, but it still produces physical goods. That tension can't be solved. It can only be managed. And that management is what makes Patagonia fascinating to watch. It's a tightrope walk over a graveyard of companies that tried to be everything to everyone and collapsed. So, here's the question I'll leave you with. When you buy Patagonia, what are you really buying? A product? A philosophy? Or access to a cleaner story about yourself? And here's the harder one. If telling people to buy less makes them buy more from you, does it reduce consumption? Or does it simply redirect it? I'm not asking this to cancel Patagonia. I'm asking because that's the real system worth studying. If this way of breaking down companies is useful to you, subscribe. In the next episode, I'll take another company you actually use every week and dissect the system behind it. And if you've ever owned Patagonia, answer honestly in the comments. What finally made you buy it? The function or the story?